every once in a while we have a couple bad, not great months, and I think, oh, if I had a regular job, I'd know how much money was coming in this week. But it always bounces back.
Welcome back to Frederick Advice Givers, episode 193. With us today is my friend Mindy Cawley at Vintage MC here in Frederick. She's got a unique background, a unique flair for her taste in accessories and furniture and vintage work,
yes.
Vintage wear. So welcome Mindy to us today.
Thank you.
Mindy,
yes.
Give us your backstory. Where did you grow up? What do you enjoy doing in your spare time? Kind of your history.
Okay. I actually grew up in Washington County in Williamsport.
Oh my God. I thought I liked you until right now. Jesus.
It's been a while. Come on.
Okay.
It was a very long time ago. I went to University of Maryland. Does that make you like me more or
yes,
less?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Terp, Fear the Turtle.
Yeah.
After I graduated from college, met my husband. We moved around a lot for his schooling. He was at JMU for a while, University of Kentucky. We eventually ended up back here in Frederick County.
Okay.
We have 3 kids. We actually had a farm at one point in Frederick County before we moved into downtown Frederick.
You downtown?
Yeah, we live downtown, just a few blocks from my store, which is very convenient for commuting.
Awesome.
So I have 3 kids, 2 that are grown. My youngest is 16. The older 2 are in college now, so I can see the empty nest on the horizon. My husband works as a cybersecurity project manager.
Okay.
In his full-time job, and then the rest of the hours that he's awake, he's here helping me at the shop. So
what do you go to college for?
Pretty busy. I went to college for advertising and journalism.
Okay. So how did you transition from advertising journalism to this is what you do? This is what you do. This is what you do.
Yes, this is my
Vintage MC is what
full-time
you
job.
do.
This and Haven Staging with Angelique.
With Angelique that we had on last week.
Yes. This is my full-time gig. So I was a stay-at-home mom after my husband finished with his schooling and started working, and I stayed home with the kids. And I worked jobs here and there. I edited textbooks for a while. I did some consulting work, things like that. But I've always loved this kind of furniture. And when we moved, we had a farm, and that was a farm business, and we sold.
Was that in Washington County or Frederick County?
In Frederick County, in Wolfville. We sold like Thanksgiving turkeys and chickens.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had pigs and chickens and everything but cows. We milked goats, like the whole 9 yards. So I did that. That was my job while I was raising the kids when they were younger. And when we sold the farm and moved here, I have always loved vintage furniture. I've always loved mid-century modern, so that's kind of led me down that path. And
well, this is kind of like a vacation. Coming from a farm background, like I grew up on a farm.
Oh, yeah.
And it's 7 days a week. It's 24 hours a day.
And when it's freezing cold like it is today, it doesn't matter. You got to milk
the animals
goats.
No,
you got to go break the ice on the water troughs. Yeah, I don't miss that part.
No.
I miss the baby goats in the spring a little bit, but I can take a drive and see that. So it was very hard work. Really makes you appreciate, where your food comes from and
absolutely
what people
it does.
go through. It was a tough business for sure. Yeah.
So why did you choose? Tell us where we are, and then why did you choose downtown Frederick? I think I can probably obviously answer that, but why did you choose downtown Frederick to open your store?
So we're located right downtown at the corner of Carroll and East All Saints, right across from Sky Stage. I actually I've been doing this about almost 7 years, 6.5 years. I started in Cannon Hill Antiques, which is next door, because I loved Cannon Hill. It was my favorite antique mall. And I've always been a huge fan of antique malls and vintage shopping. So we were pretty regulars in there already. So I had the opportunity to have a spot there, and I was there for several years, and it really grew my business, and I just needed more space. So ended up moving right next door, which was nice, and we've kept in touch. They're great people there too. I opened the store here because we live here. And we moved into downtown Frederick. We'd been in the county. We were coming to downtown a lot for all the activities and the stuff the kids were doing. We'd come here for First Saturdays, and I could see what a great community it was. So that's why we moved here to live here. And then when we decided to open a business, it was just such an obvious fit. It's such a great place to be a small business person. You know, Frederick is so supportive, the community, the other businesses, the downtown partnership. There's so much here to support small businesses. And customers come here looking for for independently owned businesses, so you're
Absolutely.
not competing with franchises, and there's just a real feel of support for that. So it was a very obvious, easy choice. And nobody was doing mid-century furniture in Frederick, so that made it an easy choice too.
So are you still the only one doing mid-century?
Pretty much, yeah, the only one that focuses on it 100%. It's gotten much more popular, so it's filtered its way into some other places, but we are solely focused on mid-century modern.
Gotcha. All right, so Antique Mall, okay?
Yep.
Where you work before, prior.
Yeah.
I just have an overall arching business kind of question. Okay, so you rent a space in there?
Correct.
Okay. Do they take a percentage of the sales too?
Yes, they all do it differently. Most of them you pay a monthly rent and then a commission as well. Some of them it's just rent, some of it's just commission. But, excuse me, the ones I was in were all rent and commission based.
Gotcha. Okay. So it gets, the premise of being there instead of a shop like yourself gets more foot traffic?
It does get more foot traffic, and it's a smaller time commitment. I mean,
Right.
I started there with one booth that was 12 by 15 feet, so basically, the size of this, half of the front of this room. I didn't have to be there. They run the front counter, they
Right.
do all the sales. So it's a good part-time gig. It's a good way to get started. It's not really expensive. The
Right.
rent's much cheaper, obviously, than
Right.
a whole building. And the commitment of not having to be there. So people that work full-time can do it that way to get started. And it's a good fit that way. And it also helps you learn the business, when you're figuring out, I knew what I liked, but I didn't know necessarily what was going to sell and what what people were looking for. So that definitely helped.
Gotcha. All right, Mindy, so I want to take this back a step to a more personal level. What is the last purchase that you splurged on for yourself or your family?
Oh boy, that's a tough. Well, so not business, not necessarily vintage or vintage.
No, I'd rather it be more personal. Didn't you just
Okay.
go on a trip or something?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's true too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you can go anywhere.
No. Okay. Well, the thing that I feel like is a bigger, that was partly business, so I feel like it's
was
a
it?
little more. Do you see? I bought this on my trip. So yeah.
How the heck much was that to
I
ship back?
A lot. We bought a half a container full of
Did you
furniture.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
So did you go over
we
there
went
for your-
specifically to buy
So where did you
furniture
go?
for here. So we went to Denmark. We did London and Prague as the fun part, and then we went to Denmark and Sweden for shopping and mostly to make connections.
Okay.
And we did end up buying and shipping a partial container back. So that's the first time we've done that, but it went really well.
Good.
One little broken piece out of 20 some pieces, there was one little handle that broke, so I was pleased with that, and everything got here. So that it was enjoyable and financially successful. So
Good.
we'll be doing that again. But back to your question about the splurge. So I've been a mom for 22 years now, so I've been driving mom cars, minivans. So this summer I bought a Mini Cooper. So that was a
nice.
pretty big splurge. Yeah. It's
Very
very
cool.
tiny, not doesn't make sense for furniture,
Right.
but it fits the vintage vibe a little bit.
Very
so.
cool. So what hobby or interest, Mindy, could you spend hours doing?
Well, I weave. So
Do you?
there's some of my
Okay.
weavings are in here. So when we had a farm, we had sheep,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd always been a knitter, fiber artist, but I took up spinning, processing.
So a
the
knitter is
wool.
called a fiber artist?
Well, I did knitting and crochet and all of the fiber.
You and Angelique have all
Felting.
these unique terms. A fiber artist. You're
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
a knitter. You're a fiber artist.
Just because I didn't just knit, I did other things too. That's why it covers. So I processed our wool and made yarn out of it. So that's
Gotcha.
how I got into weaving.
Awesome. As an entrepreneur, you don't work a 9 to 5. You don't have a steady paycheck
Right.
from your employer. What's that drive inside? What's your motivation? What keeps you going? Keeps you getting up in the morning
Well,
to do what you do?
the idea of working 9 to 5 for somebody else at this stage in my life when I haven't done it for 20 plus years is pretty horrifying, frankly.
Right.
And the flexibility, I got into owning my own business to have the flexibility to be home with my kids. We homeschooled, so I was doing a lot of that stuff too. So it was definitely about the flexibility. Having a husband with a steady paycheck obviously makes it, and health insurance and all
that's
those things
huge.
that go with it, make it a lot easier. So it was the combination of that, but now, every once in a while we have a couple bad, not great months, and I think, oh, if I had a regular job, I'd know how much money was coming in this
Right.
week. But it always bounces back and evens out, and it's even better. And it's so rewarding when it's your own baby, so to speak. But really, I just can't imagine going back to that at this stage when I've done as much on my own as I've done. It would be tough.
So my second job out of college was I was the accountant for the owner of the Fredericktown Mall. And this was back before it was dilapidated,
Right,
obviously.
right.
It was,
Soon to be District 40.
District 40 that just came out recently. I know a lot of the stores in there, 70 to 80% of their sales were from Black Friday through, the Christmas season. Is that the same here with you?
Not at all.
No, okay.
I think it's the case with most downtown stores, but people don't generally buy dressers for people for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It's stuff they buy for themselves. So our busiest time is January and February. That's been...
Wonder why that is.
Well, I think people have spent all their money on other people for a few months. They maybe have Christmas money that they've gotten as gifts, gearing up for the spring, but it's just always been January, February. And then there's another bounce at tax refund time.
Right.
And then the summer's not great here because, again, we get so much tourist traffic that, again, people aren't going to take a dresser home on the airplane.
Right.
So then it picks up again. This time it's about September, October through Thanksgiving is busy as well. And then Thanksgiving, it's very quiet here till after New Year's. Yeah.
Interesting. So what piece of advice would you give an entrepreneur just starting out, something you've learned?
Planning and research, don't be afraid to jump in, but do your research first. I've seen a lot of businesses come and go quickly that, you could just tell there was not planning on their part. They didn't research the market here or the competition or know what other people are doing. So that's a big part of it. Try not to bite off more than you can chew. If you can find a way to ease into it, the way I did helped a lot because, I can't go and order 20 dressers. So,
right.
Being at an antique mall first where I could get started a little bit at a time and build my inventory. I didn't have a huge outlay when I opened the business here in inventory. So building it a little bit at a time, get to be an expert in what you're doing before you maybe jump in with all your life savings.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
And be ready to work a lot of hours, a lot of late nights.
It's nothing compared to a farm.
Yeah, true.
It's nothing compared to a farm.
True.
Well, on the flip side of that, what is maybe either a bad piece of advice that somebody gave you, another mentor entrepreneur that didn't work out as they said it would, or something that you've learned or maybe would do different now, looking back?
Well, people keep telling me mid-century is it's over. Like when I
So
first
what the fuck
got
is
into
what is mid-century? I mean, we use that.
So mid-century is 1950s and 60s generally.
Okay.
There's a lot of American furniture and also Danish modern. It's the same era, made in Scandinavia, and that's what we specialize in. But when I first started, people even then told me, "Oh, it's dying. It's going to go away," and it's still getting better and better. I still hear people that are in the business that tell me, "Oh, it's slowing down." And when they're slow, I'm not, and when I'm slow, they're not. So, anybody that thinks they're an expert in what the customers are going to do next, you just have to take that with a grain of salt.
Okay. Good advice. So in the last 3 years, what is a choice you've made that has led you to where you are today?
In the last 3 years. Well, we opened here 2.5 years ago. So
Okay.
that's been the biggest.
So that one you went from Cannon Hill,
Right.
Cannon Hill
Cannon Hill
to here.
Yes.
That was,
yeah, it was July of this past July. It was 2 years this past July. So that was a huge step. It's something we had toyed with it for a year or two, but making the commitment to do that. And that was kind of the decision of, okay, this is going to be my full-time job. I'm not going to go get a real job now that the kids need me less. That was the make or break moment. Are we going to do this full time or not? And making that decision was definitely huge. And the other big thing that we've touched on a little bit is Haven staging and styling that I do with Angelique. We started that about, I guess, a little over a year ago. So that was also a big business decision to get involved in,
Right.
kind of a second stream of income, of expenses, and of marketing potential. So that's added a big piece to the puzzle as well.
And you're kind of where we are located physically. It could have its pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
You're not on the main
Right.
Patrick Street
Right.
of Frederick, i.e. you probably don't get a lot of looky-loos.
Correct.
So the people, you might not get as much foot traffic, but I imagine the people, like your buy rate's probably 70% of the people that come through.
Maybe I wish it was that high, but it's high. Yeah, I mean, so people generally, I would say I'm kind of a destination for people.
Right.
They know about me. They're coming to here to see what I've got.
Right.
We get very little foot traffic, very little. You know, I do things with the partnership and with other merchants downtown to try to pull traffic up here. It's been marginally successful at times. We did some group things when we first opened here because all the stores in this building were new around the same time. So we did a few events, a Carroll Creek crawl that we had tons of people, but the follow through, you know, some came back, not a lot. But yeah, I think, you know, the price of doing business here is much less expensive than it would be on Patrick Street. I can afford a bigger space than I could there. We have parking, which is huge with furniture. But certainly I'm not getting the benefit of all the foot traffic on Patrick and Market. And it's something we went back and forth at the time when we picked this place. There were a couple spaces downtown that were either more expensive or smaller, and we considered it, but this just felt like the right fit at the time. And even that, you know, the next step, we talk about, like, I'd love to have more space. You can always use more space in this business. You know, if I tried to find a space right downtown, I'd have to have a smaller space or have a much bigger rent. Or I could go out to a warehouse and have 3 times the space, but even less foot traffic. And so it's something we toy with a lot.
So Mindy, you are episode 193. I learn and love asking questions, getting insight and feedback from entrepreneurs like yourself. So I want to flip the script
Okay.
and have you ask me a question. Can be anything, personal, business.
Well, how did you get into real estate? Why real estate?
So right out of college, which was the winter of, it took me 4.5 years, so the winter of '98.
Me too.
Yeah, that last year was a lot of fun, let me tell you. So there was an additional semester. So yes, it took me 4.5 years. I bought a house just a few streets over on East 3rd Street. So my first job out of school, I didn't have an accounting background.
Right.
My first job out of school was at NVR, which is the manufacturing arm of Ryan and Envy Homes. I worked in their, did accounting for the manufacturing plant. So 6-8 months out of college, I bought my first house. The next year, I had started dating, which is my wife now, Susan, and we bought a beach house. And this was at the time when the market was crazy. Before we could even make our first mortgage payment on that beach house, we had somebody come and offer us, like, I'm not going to give you the exact numbers, but like 40% more than what we had bought it for. So I quickly had to learn about like what's called a 1031 tax exchange. And I just kind of liked that process. And after my first job, then my second job, doing accounting, sitting behind a desk all day that you talked about, 9 to 5. I grew up on a farm too, so hard work didn't really bother me. So, like, sitting behind a desk all day was kind of like, just kind of pulled at me. And I was like, oh man, this really sucks. Like I'd have to, you know, it's kind of like actually my son is now, he makes, makes excuses to go to the bathroom 3 or 4 times during the day because he can't sit still. I was that same way working. Like I can only sit still for 15, 20, 30 minutes before I got to get up and walk around or go get a coffee or go to the bathroom or something. So sitting behind a desk all day really didn't jive with who I was. But I'm not really like a good salesman. I'm not, you've kind of known me a little bit. I'm not really pushy. I'm not overly outgoing. And real estate, I just kind of fell into it because what was my former partner, I'd known her since I was from kindergarten through college with her oldest daughter. And then I went and said, Marla, I think I'd like to try real estate. She said, well, I think you'd be good at it. And, here we are 17 years later.
Worked out okay.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And kind of like you had mentioned earlier, my wife's in the education system for FCPS, and she's got the healthcare.
Right.
Like if she didn't have the healthcare, I couldn't do this.
Yeah, it's a huge
I couldn't
thing.
do real estate.
Right.
So.
So interesting aside, my first job out of college was real estate. I worked for the advertising for Mount Vernon Realty.
Okay.
And then became Weichert Realtors.
So really?
That was my first job. And I almost went into real estate too.
Yeah.
Like several times I considered going down that path. So.
It's exhilarating, it's fun, it's exciting, it's very frustrating lots of times.
There's way too much accounting and business stuff for me to
Yeah.
find interesting. But that makes the staging part, like that's the part that's fun.
Right.
Is getting house ready to sell and
Well, you can
looking
actually
at it.
visually see what you've done.
Yeah, so we get to do the fun part, and you get to do
Yeah,
all
I get to
the
deal with all the other fun stuff that we've talked about. So, Mindy, what failure or loss, and this can be personal, it could be business-wise, it could be whatever direction you want to go. What failure or loss has helped mold the person that you are?
I don't know, I'm pretty good at this. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, I've had
Yeah.
people. You know, Michael and I were driving downtown today, and he's like, "An Odd House." I was like, "Yeah." She was on. She was probably episode right around 100, and she had lost like a young infant child, and like we both literally sat there, and I had lost my cousin, and we had talked about that. We were like literally on the interview, like crying, and so what failure? So it could be
not
anything.
necessarily a business,
Like a core, like who you are, like what has happened in your life that defines who Mindy is.
Well, I guess, the farm business, having that not go so well. I mean, it went okay for a while, and then our barn collapsed in a snowstorm, and the real estate market tanked at the same time, and our equity was gone. So that was a challenging time, but my husband and I have always kind of enjoyed the challenges and the difficulties, and look at it as a way to grow and move forward and make changes. So now looking back at that, it worked out really well. But at the time, it was really tough. I mean, we took a big loss on our house. We had a big loss on the farm, and realized we couldn't sustain it as a business. We bought the property with the idea that eventually it would be our full-time income for the family, and realized fairly quickly that was a pretty crazy pipe dream that wasn't going to happen. So coming to terms with that and accepting that this wasn't the right path for us was challenging at the time. But at the same time, and then my husband lost his job in the midst of all that, because it was when the economy crashed in what was 2008. So that was tough, but it led us here, and it led us on a cross-country RV trip with his severance check. That was super irresponsible, but really fun. We had
kids at the time?
We did, and they were homeschooled. So we said, well, we could put this money in the bank and be responsible, or we could buy an RV and take a cross-country trip and maybe not come back. Like, we thought about going full-time RV with the kids for about a month, and the kids were like, no, 3 months is good. So, so it led to some pretty great things. But yeah, you put the dark stuff or the hard part, you sort of forget about after a while. Kind of like giving birth is the same way. Like, you forget about it, or you forget the pain. But I forget about how hard that time was, and the kids were young, and it was kind of scary where we were going to go from there. So that was definitely something that changed the direction of our lives and what we were doing.
Okay. So last question.
Okay.
Mindy, where do you see yourself in 3 years and then in 10 years?
So 3 years in Frederick still, possibly in this space, maybe in a bigger space, but still doing this business. Hopefully bringing in more imported furniture, because that's really fun to get to go to Denmark. And so yeah, I see myself still in this business doing what I'm doing, hopefully bigger and better and even more successfully, more with Haven staging. And in 10 years, let me think, I have to do the math. Maybe I would say one of my kids starting to take over the business, but I don't see that happening. They are not interested in moving heavy furniture at all. So I guess we'll be thinking about retirement in maybe 15 years if we're lucky. So I don't know, I guess at that point I'll have to think about where this goes from there. Maybe I'll be a big name and sell the name in the store for lots of money. No.
There you go. Love it. Love it. So where are we? How do people find your inventory? How do we find you online?
Okay.
Any information about the spiel about the store?
So we're in downtown Frederick. Like I said, we're on South Carroll Street at the corner of East All Saints, right across from Sky Stage, next to Clue IQ and Patrick Street Interiors. We're open Thursday through Sunday every week, and we are also online. vintage-mc.com is the website. I eventually get everything posted on the website. It can take me a while, so if people follow me on social media Instagram or Facebook. It's Vintage MC Frederick is my tag there, and that's the best place to see the things as they come in. Or give us a call or message me and tell me what you're looking for. We love to be on the hunt.
And you
for
don't mind
pieces.
going out and sourcing or
No,
finding
that's my
pieces?
favorite thing to do. That's how the staging fits so well, because I'm the acquisitions director. I forget what we put on our cards, but Angelique has these visions of what she wants, and she says, "Do you think you can find me?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can." So that's my favorite part. I still go to auctions as much as I can, and like I'm going to be out there tomorrow freezing my butt off on the Eastern Shore trying to buy furniture. So yeah, the acquisitions are definitely the most fun part of this job. So yeah, I love a challenge.
Awesome. Mindy, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
Listeners, viewers, episode 193 of Frederick Advice Givers. Mindy Cawley with Vintage MC here in Frederick. Thanks for joining us. We are out.